Hi, everyone. Carl Ford here. I'm with Jan Linden and with Anatoli Levine, and we're going to talk about ecosystems here. And as usual, I try to provide a contrarian view. At the beginning of the day, Anatoli was waxing about whether or not ecosystems have a life of their own and what's the life cycle of an ecosystem. So I thought that was an opportune time for me to talk about what lessons can we learn from killing the old ecosystem, namely POTS. So with that said, let's do some ecosystem basics. First of all, living organisms in an ecosystem are called a community. But in our technology world, we're now getting inorganics that give us lifelike sensories, with machine to machine. So we're either extending our community or we are redefining a new community category. We are either extending ourselves within the community, I should have said. And we have tiers of members. And one of the big questions we have to ask is, what's the top of the food chain? Are the carriers the top of the food chain? Are devices the top of the food chain? And then, of course, what's the bottom of the food chain? Who are the scavengers? And in our ecosystem, the equivalent of the sun's energy is the internet's data. So one of the questions that we're asking is how to kill an ecosystem. And the easy answer is you change the biology of an ecosystem. You create an overabundance, or you create a shortage, or something catastrophic you change. We could make a case that the iPhone and the development of the smartphone has actually kind of created a catastrophic experience for the previous ecosystem. And I'll show you more about that in a few moments. But more importantly, I think that there really is a subtle change that's going on, which the smartphone represents. So in the overall planet ecosystem, we have commodities that move back and forth via ships. In the internet's ecosystem, we have commodity that moves back and forth, namely on data, and it gets to various devices. And our commodity measures basically don't change a lot. With soybeans, we talk in kilograms. With data, we talk about bytes. We ship in terms of time, and we obviously talk about bandwidth in terms of time. And then it's an issue of whether or not there's delays in either the online side or the real-life side. So in effect, we could say that our data models have kind of been changing, and that's been what's been going on with our ecosystems. We've seen some major changes. I never thought that Sun would be acquired by Oracle. I never thought that the internet world was going to make it so that the switching world, like Alcatel-Lucent and Ericsson, had to regroup and rethink what they were going to be doing. Now we're at a stage where everyone's talking about the cloud, and we're heading towards a world where the data basically becomes more modularized and more available to everything. So having a little fun with the past ecosystem of POTS, a lot of people saw it as a desert wasteland where you could only basically get something through as quickly as possible. So, I was thinking I should have some background music, the caravan, and you just had to go through it. Well, now we're at a stage where we're talking about clouds. Obviously, we have lots and lots of storefronts, and the way I see the storefronts is we have the content delivery networks, we have the wireless network, we have the internet itself, and then we have Ethernet. All of these different technologies represent, in effect, ecosystems trying to interconnect to each other and trying to find the best path forward. The biggest story, really, to me, is the pent-up demand from the GSMA ecosystem and that wireless ecosystem, which basically was stuck doing nothing but phone calls in this world. And with LTE, we're migrating it, but the truth of the matter is that we're not migrating in a way that represents a unified ecosystem. We're actually splitting up the ecosystem quite a bit. And that means that more and more changes are going to be made where things are going to become very specific to locations. Well, that lends itself to the internet being the ultimate ecosystem, and we can rethink how we think about the technology. So the point I was making is that when we're talking about data and our economic goods and the transport of stuff, what we got to realize is that all of our data centers are going to be trying to basically provide an interoperability service. And when you look at what we use our data for, truth of the matter is that even on our smartphone, it's very rare that we actually use our smartphone for anything but the internet. The internet represents almost 60% of our time on our network. And with voice, I figure that we're using less than 15% of it for traditional POTS communications. And then, there are things that we do on the smartphone that is just basically entertainment to itself. So this brings me to the fact that we should be thinking about the web as our major ecosystem here. And basically, I was saying that we should be thinking in terms of how we keep pushing the data along and how we provide a common model for everything. So in a developer's ecosystem, we have device-specific OS development tools, we have web-oriented solutions, we have hybrids, and we have solutions that basically try to blend things together, like PhoneGap, jQuery, and I jokingly said we've got about 100 .js extensions. Node.js, in my opinion, is the one that really needs our attention. And from an ecosystem standpoint, I think we're calling a lot of organisms out there ecosystems, and I'm not sure that's a fair cop. I think species come and go, but the internet is the real story. And that's how I wanted to talk about ecosystems to start. So with that, I'll turn over to you, Anatoli. Anatoli?
Thank you, Carl. Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Carl. Okay, I think, well, so I'm here more, I mean, the question of ecosystems really is interesting for me overall, as this is what we are observing right now in the present. This is what is happening in the present, and essentially this is I don't want to say the war. War is the bad and strong word, but the process which is taking place right now is we see one ecosystem which is extremely successful, and I'm essentially talking about Apple, and then we see a lot of other ecosystems being in a process of struggle. Is again, I don't want to create any antagonistic feelings here, but if you look at Google, if you look at Microsoft, they in a process of delivering their ecosystems, but still, Apple in terms of ecosystem has a almost a complete offering. If you look at that, if you look at for instance, so they got iTunes, they got cloud, and they got everything effectively moving in rhythm around it, and including some of this latest announcements about features on the iPhone, on the iOS 6. Where to me literally mind-boggling, because we are talking about unified communications, and everybody are talking about unified communications. As soon as you use that phrase, unified communications, you instantly, like, your ecosystem expands 100-fold probably, because that immediately includes a lot of different companies, the carriers, service providers, everybody. And but Apple announcing that their latest feature additions to The iOS 6 is literally the stuff when you fully control the features, when you fully control behavior of your phone application, depending on when and what you're gonna do when the call arrives while you're in the meeting, and so on and so on. I mean, it's amazing. It's unified communications delivered in really a proprietary way. So the interesting part here for me is that really, if you look at Apple, it's a proprietary implementation, right? Even though they use open standards for FaceTime, but all in all, it's a proprietary implementation. And then you look at the history of IMTC, and you look at a lot of and really majority of the vendors in this industry, and we're all trying to we're all pushing for open standards. This is the focus. This is what we're trying to provide, and so it is, and open standards are really, if we want to have one unified ecosystem, I don't know what I just said, but if we want to have one unified ecosystems, in my opinion, it can be built only on the open standards. So again, it's very interesting to see where we're going. What will be in 2025? Is there going to be one Apple ecosystem, or what it's going to be? Or I don't know. We can replace the word Apple with Google or Microsoft. Doesn't matter. But will there be one proprietary, or will we achieve greatness with the open standard? So I don't know. I didn't mean it to be really a question, but it is really a question for you guys. So I'm sure John has a lot to say about it. So.
Yeah, sure. Since you mentioned three companies there, Apple, Microsoft, and Google, and I'm with Google, I guess that means I should have an opinion, but I probably can't share it. So. Well, I'll start in another point and get back to that, and I think it's tying back to what Carl said. It's all about the internet, obviously, and there you see an ecosystem that is really getting together, and the times when voice communication or video communication, for that matter, was a full-blown technology product standalone. That's definitely going away, and we're going to where this is just a piece. This is a technology that you integrate in anything, and the internet is absolutely perfect for that, since you then get access to all kinds of different types of data in the same network. So that's the basis where I and we start our thinking. And what we did, which I think definitely is very relevant to this, is we thought, well, if everything happens on the internet, and by the way, that's where we make our money, so it's a good thing that it does. We want people to be on the internet. We want them to be in the browser. But the browser is lacking some of the capabilities that make it really attractive and can do all the things that you want it to do. You want to be able to easily integrate voice and video together with both real-time and streaming, and you want to do all kinds of things. So we've been focusing a lot in Chrome, but also in the standards in general, to make sure that it's not only Chrome that has all this functionality. So, which gets me to the WebRTC effort, which I think is really key in the discussion we're talking about here. So a couple of years ago, Google acquired the company I was with, Gibbs, with the purpose of being able to kickstart the open real-time communication for the browser and internet. And what we did then we went to the IETF and the W3C before we even started building anything at Google, to make sure that we have everybody on board to have open standards around this. So this is exactly what you said, Anatoli. We believe that in order to build a really powerful ecosystem here, you need open standards. And not only did we provide start that effort on the standards in WebRTC, but also we open sourced all the technology that you need to make sure that it's not getting stuck on people not having access to the technology. So that's what we've been doing, and we are working hard on that, and just launched pieces of it. Mozilla is doing it, Opera is doing it. It seems like Microsoft is doing part of it. They've signed up for at least part of it. So things are happening there to get this. And I think, because I'm also worried about these, at the same time as we're growing into one ecosystem for all communication and what we're doing on the internet, we see a really focused effort on, especially from Apple and Microsoft and a few others, to really put people into their ecosystem, and that should be enough. But I don't think that will ever be enough. And I believe that WebRTC is one of those things that, because it's open, because it's gaining so much traction and popularity, it will be impossible to stay completely outside of that and be relevant. So this is my strong belief that this is one of the great things that can help keeping an open ecosystem. Comments?
Just take the mic off.
Okay, now we can hear you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the, first of all, not to take issue with you, Anatoli, but I'll make a case that Microsoft and Google aren't actually fighting that same battle. And I think Jan stated elegantly what Google's doing to basically make it about the internet. On Microsoft's side, they've got three problems that are facing them that make their ecosystems particularly annoying. The first one is that I don't think they are going to ever manage to be an HTML5 browser in our lifetime. No matter if they put one out right now, the problem is that they are so mired by the legacy enterprises that basically really want them to stay in Windows 3.1, that they've got a problem where their browser world is just kind of not up to speed. Now, behind the scenes, they're doing wonderful things with Node.js and HTML5 and all the back-end systems. But you don't see that. That's not something that you and I will visually see. So I think from a standpoint of supporting the internet, I think Microsoft has kind of adopted to that now. They still want a .NET big data world in their mindset, but they believe in the use of the standards. So in that way, they are somewhat like Google. On Google's side, you know, we can, if we want to, give them credit for trying to do no evil. You know, they've tried to enable every device manufacturer out there to have the equivalent of a smartphone interface. Okay, so that's been the positive side. You know, I will ignore the negative side at the moment. So bottom line is, I don't see them trying to create any other ecosystem other than supporting the ultimate ecosystem of the internet. Now, having said that, let's go back and look at our past, right? You know, Jen comes from GIPS, you come from Radvision, I come from Running Bond. Let's look at what has happened with voice over IP. We are still not at a point where direct voice over IP is the norm, right? We still have people gatewaying back and forth to each other. And the problem that we face is that the internet can easily end up in this world where everything gateways and just uses the internet as a, quote, dumb pipe. Okay? It is the smartest dumb pipe we've ever created, but it, in effect, becomes a dumb pipe again. And what we have to do is make it so that more and more internet ecosystem stuff requires better interfaces. And that's kind of to Jan's point about the value of WebRTC and the value of HTML5. You know, what we're really changing in this world right now is middleware is almost disappearing by the use of the next generation of browsers. It's much easier to have direct client-server relationships with all these devices. You and I have had a private conversation where I've tried to figure out if there's a need for a home unit that basically controls all the sensors in the house. And at the end of the day, you and I both came away saying you know what, the browser's the only thing we really need, you know, and as long as we keep thinking that way, I think we're on the right track to making it so that no one organism takes over the planet, you know, so that's my own personal take.
Right. So, but I don't know if HTML5 and the WebRTC is squarely give us the picture we're looking for, because the problem, not problem, but today when we say ecosystem, and now we might move to some totally strange areas with this conversation, but again, if you look at what comprises the Apple ecosystem, it is built around iTunes, which is a content management system. So first of all, there is a very advanced content management system, content acquisition, whatever way you want to call it. So great content management, content delivery system. Then you got storage, which is there, and then you got apps which work everywhere, and those apps combined with availability of content and availability. So you got content which you can acquire from anyone, and then you got your own content, which is now becomes this is your cloud. You want to have whatever is near and dear to you, whatever is your cloud, you want to put it, whatever is your data, whatever is your content, you want to keep it, you want to make it available anywhere, so that's where the cloud comes in. So in essence, that what makes this ecosystem is so strong, because you got a full cycle. You got full cycle of whatever you want to do, you got it covered. So, is it going to stay like that, or is it HTML5 will ultimately change that? I don't know if HTML5 alone is enough.
Well, yeah, this is about predicting the future. So let me say what I do think it is. I think it is. Maybe not all, but there will be other things that come up in the future that will help us get even further. But you have to remember also that the Apple ecosystem is pretty small. They make a ton of money out of a pretty small ecosystem. And the speed it can grow with is much, much, much slower than the speed HTML5 and the browsers can grow with and are growing with. So there is because of that, the powers that are in there, you can you can definitely get somewhere without having to put devices in people's hands, for example, that they already have most of the devices they need. I think also that there are a number of issues in terms of reaching outside of the. So one of the big things here is the ecosystem we're looking at is not going to be replacing the one we had, which was for a limited part of the world, for a limited number of people. We're looking at something that will reach everyone, or at least many, many, many more people. And then the Apple way of doing that, I don't believe much in. I believe the low cost, easy to use, extremely easy to update because it's all auto update, and super wide reach is what wins out. And there you have the browsers with HTML5 and really truly built on an open network.
Yeah, if I can comment on what you just said, Jan, and also, you know, Anatoli, the point that you kind of made in effect was that Apple is the place where people are paying for being part of an ecosystem, and the rest of the world is not. Well, that's not quite true. What it is Apple's the place where you get charged to being part of the ecosystem, and everywhere else on the internet, you basically have a more direct relationship. You know, PayPal is a more directed relationship. Any commerce that you do on the internet is a more direct relationship. All that Apple's managed to do is find a very clever way to take control, and I watch this continually. I still check which of my family members are pirates and, jailbreak their phones and try to basically get their iTunes on for free, and how much of them are sitting there saying it's only 99 cents, what the hell? And, though that's kind of the question you got to ask is there a ease of use functionality that we're missing on the internet in terms of commerce that really would change the game? And I think the answer is that will come in time. And at that point, Apple's ecosystem is going to lose a key differentiator. Now, it bothers me that I was involved in standards looking to do internet commerce, 10 years ago, and still have yet to succeed. So, I give Apple a tremendous amount of credit for having done something more than I could do. I had high expectations of Scott Thompson going over to Yahoo. And, I thought for sure he was going to figure out a way to do some micropayment strategies. And, recent studies indicate that's not going to happen. So, we'll watch with anticipation as to, how we in the internet actually get our act together on mobile commerce. And I think that's, a place that we have a lot of opportunity. But I don't want to say that, earlier today you've had a conversation about the fact that the content industry is having a tremendous change, right? And, the truth of the matter is that there are, I've got this show on in the States, which for the rest of the world, I hope never makes it franchise, called Tosh.0, right? Where he sits there and takes mobile internet video and makes fun of it all. And it's basically a hybrid of broadcast quality and whatever else comes along. You can make the case that America's Funniest Videos is the same thing. And we're at a point right now where the distribution and diversification is changing tremendously. So the old guard needed jobs to help them figure out how to do something clever. And God bless Steve that he did. Well, I don't know if Steve would like me saying God bless, but that's a secondary thing. Buddhist that he is, or was. And the point is, if you read, Walter Isaacson's biography, you see that Steve managed to figure out a way to get things down to a container and make a price point for the container that was ease of use. And I think that's been the biggest problem for us, is we don't think in terms of the container well enough yet. I think we will eventually, but that's certainly not the case. I've got lots of people want to talk in terms of the big picture, but understanding how to make it so that the transport and the bundle works in a convenient way for people, that's a harder thing to do. It takes knowing a customer well and bundling it right. And, that's really what the ecosystem of the cloud's all about, is, we're seeing bundles of services attached to the internet, and that's really what the cloud is. So in some ways, we're getting new commerce that way as well. Am I making sense to you, Anatoli, or did I lose you on the Steve Jobs Buddhist comment?
No. No, you making sense, Carl, of course, as usual. I'm still trying to understand what is what, because like HTML5, for instance, and WebRTC are simply the tools. Ultimately, people want their content, and that's what people want. And they want it to be available anywhere. They want it to be available in a format they want, conveniently, easy, and whatever the content is. Content can be a university lecture. Content can be a movie. Content can be a game. Really doesn't matter. People want a universal access. So from that point of view, HTML5 can help, I think, to have one ecosystem, open ecosystem, if we want to put it like that. But at the same time, that the challenge is that with this openness comes a problem, because then you really, I mean, if how many apps are in the what I'm afraid I will be off by number of n-fold. Is it 600,000 or 600 million? How many apps are right now available for the iPad? The number is escaping me, but it's rather humongous. And if you have zero navigation through all this available content, then you're going to be in trouble. So, I mean, not the consumers will be in trouble. People will have a problem, no matter how open and how great the stuff is. But people need guidance, I think, and this is where ecosystem comes in, because you put stuff together and you issue, here's your very short notes on how to operate this thing, and that's it, and everybody go happy. Nobody can read 500 pages manuals anymore. So this is where the problem lies. So I still don't know how those ecosystem will look in 2025. Not that it's possible to know, but still, it's very interesting. In my mind, it's like truly open in terms of what can happen, not in the terms of the open ecosystems, but I don't know. Microsoft right now is making a lot of effort with all the Windows 8 and trying to put stuff together. Trying to make stuff to work in a cohesive way, but are they successful? So far, I don't see the sign of that.
Well, first of all, I want to get Jan more into this conversation, but to your point, if people need help navigation, I think Jan should have raised his hand and said, "That's why I'm here." The other side of that coin is, I think the question you want to ask about ecosystems is what on the food chain needs to be fixed in order for people to choose an ecosystem. Where does the internet have to adapt, right? I mean, let's be clear. We're not going to change our sleep habits thanks to the internet, or at least very few of us are. I'm sure there's an iosmosis site somewhere in this world, but it's work that is changed by the internet. It's play that's being changed by internet. And now, thanks to the smart car conversation you've been having, its commute time is being changed by the internet, right? Everywhere we turn, the story is the internet. It's great that I don't care whether it's 600,000 or 600 million, how many servers are up on the internet right now? How many websites are up on the internet right now? And the real story is, let's talk about how we make it so that we're supporting the mobile consumer. I had a very interesting fight with a mutual friend of ours who lives up in Yorktown Heights, who was telling me that Apple was going to buy a carrier. First of all, Google's probably got the best network in the United States, and nobody knows it. It's behind the scenes and its CDN function. But independent of that, why in the world would anyone want to be a carrier at this point? The internet makes it so that anything can connect up together. And I just have a real rough time buying into, the fact that it's got to be a totally integrated package. Look at the reality. The reality is that Apple is an HTML5 based company. You just never get to write to it. You basically get the APIs to touch, but you don't get to actually use the browser the way you want to, right? You talked about the fact that they built UC interfaces, right? Can you touch those UC interfaces? No, they're hard coded, right? Now, there are places where you need hard coding for solutions. I have a minor investment in a company called CoolSpan, right? Who basically does encrypted communications, right? And they want to have total device control. But the reality is that, Apple basically has total device control on you regardless of whether you buy an app or not. And that's not the model that I think wins in the end. So I really want to shut up and let Jan talk.
Well, where do I want to start? But one of the things first, just again to make sure everybody's clear that not picking on Apple per se just happens to be a prominent example of the closed model. And what I'm trying to advocate is the open model with HTML5 and through the browsers. And one of the things that you talked about, both of you, a little bit, is the tremendous problem of managing the applications. That because so a great thing with the closed model here is that it happened to provide a really good way of monetizing things. And that's, as Carl alluded to before, is a key thing to get an ecosystem going. There are different ways of doing an app. One is to have an app store that turns out to work, and especially if you set it up and take a third of the profit, it's a really good thing for you. But that also creates a really, really hard to navigate ecosystem, because you have to go to this store and get your apps instead of where you're actually discovering the stuff, which is on the internet. Nobody really goes to the app store to start. Well, I mean, sometimes you go there and look, but it's really what you're doing. You're out on the internet, you hear something, you see something, and you want to do it right there. And instead, you have to go get an app, and then you have to remember that you had that app and go to that one every time you want to do something, instead of every time where it fits the purpose of what you're doing. And this is where I, again, believe that the true value is that we live on the internet, therefore everything should be integrated in that experience, and that is the way things survive and becomes really powerful, instead of always having to do things stepwise. I have this, I manage that, I go there. Everything in the same place. But the problem until now has been that, and it's still going to be a problem for a while, that we haven't had the functionality available to do this in a powerful way. But really, for the purpose of we're talking about, the WebRTC is really a key component to that. There are other really important HTML5 developments as well. But by doing that, we really get over a huge hurdle that has made it really hard to do some of the communication applications that you want to do on the internet. It's so the other part, I think Anatoli talked about this, about that HTML5 is basically just a set of tools. And yeah, that's exactly what it is, which is really great. It's a set of free available tools for anybody, instead of a closed system where tools are not available to everybody, or not all the parts of the tools. And as Carl said, you can even manipulate them yourself. You can add on top of them. You can add underneath them in many cases, which is not usually possible in a closed system. So what am I doing? I'm trying to argue for the obvious, that a more open and flexible system is better. But the real question is, how do you make the better system the winner? So what do you guys think?
Jan, I think you hit the nail on the head with where are people finding what they want to get, okay? The truth of the matter is the point of sale is the internet. And what we have to learn to do is make it so that the internet actually enables the transaction. I'll get you off the hot seat as Google, and I'll talk in generalities here. Our friend Bill Walker, who's coming to speak at DEF CON 5, notice plug, will be talking about Mozilla's ecosystem and the fact that they're now building an app store. And I was real excited because of the fact that they're basically aiming at enabling you to be your own app store via the Mozilla network of software. And I think that's cool. The thing that bothers me is the fact that they still have a centralized model in their mindset. If we really wanted to talk about something interesting, we should try to figure out how to do peer-to-peer e-commerce. I mean, in India and the third world right now, we have lots of micro banks, right? And we've got these whole strategies going on there. It'd be great to see in 2025, the ability to have some micro commerce going on internet apps, right? And make it so that people could have just better barter between each other, more micro banking. Nothing stops that from happening. So that's one possibility for how we get to the new age in 2025. Another strategy is just, better point of sale tools, better commerce functionality on the sites. I always feel for National Public Radio when I go onto their websites, and they've got the standardized plea. Well, in WebRTC, in theory, they know who I am when I come there, right? And wouldn't it be great if they stopped saying, please give, and said thank you for giving, and by the way, the next time you're due for your thing is here, or hey, how about upping, did you know you could extend your New Yorker subscription? I think I'm already extended to 2025, candidly, but we'll ignore that fact. So, I think there's some ways to play those. I think there's some ways to play those things a little bit better. Last but not least, I think just making it so that the internet as a pipe provides more functionality and more API interfaces than Apple could ever do makes sense to me. It bothered me. I'm watching the Lemmings all applaud as Tim Cook's telling them that he's bundled Yelp and Open Table into their mapping tool. And I sat there and I wondered how many folks actually lost their business model of what they intended to do on the iPhone as a result of Apple now doing a tighter integration. And I think the winner of the winner is the one that basically enables the internet the most in the end. I like it better when APIs provide tools for you to use multiple sites, multiple devices. That's the whole point of the whole 2015 inner data prediction. And I think that's kind of the other place where the internet wins in the end. God, I sound like a futurist. Go figure.
All right. I think we're almost out of time. So this was interesting. This was interesting. I don't think we're coming out with a clear sense of vision, not what it will be, but what it even might be, which is very justifiable. I think at the speed of technology and the pace of change is such right now is that any predictions are getting outdated. Literally, the time you say them, they already outdated. So that's fortunate or not. It doesn't matter. This is just fact of life. So in general,
let me ask you a question, Anatoli.
Go.
Jan, we've all seen Minority Report, right? Where basically, the store sees your eyes, recognizes your eyes, and basically starts marketing to you directly, right? Tom Cruise walks into the store and, starts trying to give him a 55-year-old Japanese outfit because of the fact that those are the eyes that he got implanted into him after the eye operation. So, how long before we have that kind of commerce functionality from our TV set, from our walking past digital signs and our whole augmented reality? Because I think that makes a big difference. That kind of minimizes, the iPhone's prominence, right? If Xbox walked around with me and basically had that kind of thing, that changes the game considerably. So do you see that happening by 2025? Yes, no, maybe so?
I definitely see that happening in some form, maybe not the I form, but because it's already happening in many ways. When you go into a store, some stores have the possibility to check in, basically, I'm here, this is who I am. Then, of course, there are all these issues of how much will you allow and how much privacy and all those things, how much will you share to get but in order for it to be successful, it has to be your individual trade-off. I believe I get benefits from opting in this much while if I don't get enough benefit, and then I won't do it.
Yeah, Carl, this technology is coming, which you mentioned. I don't not necessarily see the direct impact on the exact ecosystems, but yes, in essence, it's coming. But anyway, I think we're out of time, guys. So thank you very, very much. We should next time we will schedule this for I don't know. We have to start doing probably. This kind of session should be done over dinner and with at least 3 hours allocated. Maybe then we can come to.
I'll tell you what. I'll sit with you in Austin. I'll sit with both of you in Austin. We'll do it there.
All right.
Deal. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a great session, I think. Thank you.
Bye.